The first parameter we have is the flex diameter parameter. This value dictates the size the flex will be when you snap to this specific spin collar. Most of the time, you will always have the flex diameter and the spin diameter equal to one another. This way, if you attach flex to a 6-inch spin, the flex is 6 inches. If you attach flex to an 8-inch spin, the flex will be 8 inches. However, flex diameter, whatever you put here for this value, will be the size of the flex regardless of the size of the spin itself. For example, here we have the flex diameter is 2, the spin diameter is 6. We're going to hit save and then we're going to exit out. Now what we're going to do is go to the spin collar accessory. We're going to add one to this fitting and we're going to choose the PCAD collar. Once we press OK, we now have a spin that's on the drawing that's 6 inches. However, if we grab a piece of flex and then we attach to the spin utilizing the endpoint, you'll notice that the flex is actually 2 inches in diameter because that is the value we put in for flex diameter. So this flex can work independently of the spin collar you're attaching to. As we said earlier though, 99% of the time, and for all the collars that are already developed in PractiCAD for you, the flex diameter and the spin diameter always equal one another. The next two parameters are for the diameter and length of the spin collar itself. Here you can see the spin diameter is currently set at 6. That would mean that if we measured from one end of this opening to the other, it would be 6 inches in diameter. Simply enter the value you need or just roll it up with your wheel mouse to the proper size. Generally, we're naming our spin collars based on whatever the value for spin diameter is. Spin length is simply the length of the actual spin collar itself. Here it's at 6 inches. If we just roll it up with the mouse, it will get longer to meet whatever value we have here. If the spin length says 12 inches, it means from one end to the other, this spin collar would be 12 inches long. The collar distance parameter tells us the distance from the in or out connector that we are offsetting the collar from and the center point of the spin collar. For example, here you can see the collar distance is set at 10. That would mean that if we measured from the in connector to the center of the collar, where the cursor is currently, that value would be 10 inches. You can see by setting the collar distance to 0 that it puts the center line of the collar directly on the in connector. So you can choose whatever default collar distance you would like this spin collar to start at. Keep in mind when you go to input on the drawing, you're going to be able to adjust this to whatever you want. This is simply the value that the spin collar will start from as a default when you first select this particular collar type. The choice for mount shop or mount field are identical to those for tap parameters. If you choose mount shop, you're telling PractiCAD that when it downloads the duct that you attach the spin collar to, that it should cut out the hole for that spin collar on the plasma cutter. If you say mount field, this means that you're going to cut these holes out in the field, and PractiCam should receive this fitting without any information regarding where the hole is or the size of the hole. In other words, nothing will be cut out of this particular fitting. The parameters for material and gauge actually do not have any relevance on how this particular spin collar is going to be cut. Remember, if you're utilizing a spin collar as an accessory, you are not downloading this spin collar to PractiCam to be fabricated. So by choosing a material and a gauge here, all you're going to be able to do is report whatever the material and gauge of this particular spin collar accessory is. If you would like to produce a report that says number of spin collars with diameter, and then you'd also like to report the material and gauge, you can choose the proper choices here. And these choices are coming from underneath material allowances and underneath your gauge in the allowance section. But these will have no bearing on fabrication. These are not parameters that were meant to download. If you would like to download and fabricate your spin collars, then you actually want to create a spin collar catalog from a PractiCAD fitting template. Those will download to PractiCam. However, these two are available if you'd like to report either the material of a spin collar accessory or the gauge. The last parameter we have for spin collar accessories is the option to put a damper in the collar. Currently next to damper you get a drop down menu and there are three basic options. Either A, we can choose no damper by choosing the blank space. You will not get a damper in the collar. B, we can choose the predefined damper, which is basically just a single line right through the center of the collar. Or C, we can choose any damper type that we have inside our Practicad round damper section. And here you can see the list that we have currently. All we need to do is pick the one we'd like to use. Practicad will place it into the collar, and every time we insert this collar on the drawing, that damper will be part of it. Keep in mind that in the tutorials on how to create dampers, it shows you how to make sure that the inset of the damper is in the proper location.